guys, welcome to another episode of Paint for Fun. Today we are going to be painting a beach scene, something simple for beginners. So I'm going to be using a big flat brush. I have a medium flat brush for this, and I also have a small round pointed brush. So I'm working with a small canvas. You guys can work whatever size you'd like. You can do bigger than this if you want. And I have primary colors, which is red, yellow, blue. I have black and white paint. I have my pot of water, and that's it. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with the background. So I'm gonna do the sky first. I want it to kind of be like a warm sky. So let's do a little bit of yellow to start with a little bit of white. Keep it really, really light. And I'm just gonna start touching like the top left-hand corner here. I'm gonna keep it really, really light. So if you feel like you added too much yellow, you can just add a little bit of white to that to tone it down. And that's it. I'm gonna keep the center a little bit lighter, so I'm adding a bit of white to that. And that's it. I'm working small, so I'm covering my space fairly quickly. I am using my big brush for this. So I'm gonna rinse it out. And now I'm going to add maybe a little bit of a pink tone to that. And I'm gonna keep it, again, very, very, very light. So I'm not using too much red at all. And I'm gonna add quite a bit of white. I want like a very, very light pink. So I'm just gonna start pulling my brush very gently. Because the paint is still wet, it's gonna start to blend in a little bit. Maybe touch the bottom a little bit. And since it's a little bit harsh, I'm gonna tone it down with some white. So I'm gonna just take a bit of white paint on my brush and just kind of go over that area so it blends in to the yellow a little bit and it becomes a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm just gonna tone it down just a little bit with that white. And like I said, since the base is still wet, it's gonna blend in. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse out my brush. Anytime you change colors, just rinse your brush out. Still gonna use the same brush. I'm gonna do the opposite side now, and I'm gonna do a very, very light blue. So just a tiny, tiny bit of blue, quite a bit of white, and I'm gonna start pulling the paint in here. Again, keeping it super, super fair. Just gonna stop around halfway, so that's where the horizon line is gonna be. So I'm still gonna keep pulling the paint in, keep pulling the paint in. Horizontal brush strokes, very gently, not a lot of pressure on your brush. And that's it. So I'm gonna rinse out my brush once again. If you wanna add some clouds, which I'm gonna do now, I could go like a little bit darker. So I'm gonna take some blue. Oh, that's some black. Let me rinse that out again. I'm gonna take a little bit of blue. I'm gonna make a very, a light purple. So I'll take a tiny bit of blue, a tiny bit of red, and quite a bit of white. Okay, so I don't want too much paint for this. I just want to keep it really light, okay? So again, I'm just pulling the paint, and I'm gonna show you how to blend that in later. Right now, I'm just pulling it very, very gently, just like so. It doesn't look like much right now, but I'll show you how to kind of fluff it up and kind of blend it in afterwards. I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna take my medium brush for this now. So it's still wet. I'm gonna take a little bit of white paint. And this is what I'm gonna use to kind of tone it down and blend it into the sky a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just pulling the paint with these little brush strokes, okay? Taking a bit of white paint, toning it down that way, and just pulling it into the sky. And it's gonna kind of soften everything if you want to add some more on the other side. I have a very dry brush for this, so it's kind of just staining the canvas, okay? Okay, so I'm picking up a little more of that purple color, and again, just kind of blending it in. Since I have like some white on the base now, it'll be a little bit easier to blend. So my clouds are pretty wispy. I don't want to make them too fluffy. I just want to kind of keep it soft. I'm going to add a bit to the bottom here. So again, I'm not using a lot of paint for this, very, very light. Might go back with a bit of that yellow color. And very gently. Rinse out and maybe add just a little more of the pink, and that's it. I'm going to stop it there. So just a bit more of that pink color. White. So anytime you feel like it's a little harsh, just use the white paint to kind of tone it down a little bit, and it'll help you blend the colors and sort of soften it all up. Okay, so I'm gonna just add a bit more white here because I will add the sun there. I want this area to be a little bit lighter. Taking a bit of that light blue and just hitting that corner up a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna take the little brush now. I'm just gonna add a little circle here for the sun. So it's gonna be really subtle. Okay, so we're gonna stop there. Now we can work with the ocean. So I'm gonna use my medium brush for this. Give it a good rinse, just rub it at the bottom of your cup. You could dry it out a little bit. We're gonna start with different tones of blues, okay? So for now, I'm just gonna take a little bit of blue, add a tiny bit of white to it. I'm not gonna mix it super well on my plate. I'm gonna allow the colors to mix on the canvas. So what I do is I start with just drawing the horizon line. So just draw a horizontal line And my trick to drawing a horizon line is I literally just take it and pull it quite quickly. Like the longer, if you like take your time doing it, you might get shaky. So I just hold it and pull. That's usually, it gives you a straighter line. So I'm gonna fill this in right now with these blue tones, just until about, I'm gonna leave a section at the bottom, okay? Because we're gonna still fill it in, but do some different tones of blue. So I wanna start with the background here. So try to keep your brush strokes horizontal. Just pull the paint. Alright, so I'm going to stop here for now. We are going to fill it in with lines and stuff to give it some details. I'm going to still work with the edge here. So what I'm going to do is, I want to create the sand. Okay, so I'm going to give this a little drying break before I tackle it again. So I want this to be a bit of a shoreline here. And then like the water will wash up shore. So to create that sand tone, there's a few different ways to create a brown. I like to just use a little bit of yellow, a tiny bit of red, just mix that together to create an orange. And then I'm gonna add a tiny bit of black to it. So black is really overpowering. Try not to put too much of it to start. That should give you a chocolatey brown. Okay, so equal parts of red and yellow, and then add a little tiny bit of black. And from there, you should have that brown tone, and if you want to lighten it, we're gonna add white to it. So from here, you'll be able to see if your color's like missing a little bit of red, or a little, like if I have too much yellow, if I have too much red, you can add a bit of both. So I feel like it's a little more on the yellow side, so I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of red to that. Kind of warm it a little bit more. And I'm gonna add some more white. So be very gentle with your colors, like never put too much of anything. Always apply like a little bit at a time, and you'll be able to like adjust the color. If you like put in a lot of paint when you're mixing, you'll notice like, oh, if you messed up, you're gonna have to start over again. Okay, so let's test it out. I think I'm happy with that. So what I'm gonna do is, this is gonna be the shoreline. So I'm just gonna kind of like pull the paint down here a little bit. So I'm kind of angling it. I'm not keeping it super straight. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. If you want to go a little bit darker, I might add just a bit more black or red to it. It's a little too much red, but if you want some darker bits, you can again do the same thing. So red, yellow, bit of black. That should give you a brown. And I'm just gonna add like a few little darker bits just to give it some texture. And right along the shoreline, I'm gonna darken it a little bit so it looks like it's gonna be wet. All right, so I'm gonna rinse out my brush and allow that to dry now. And we're gonna go back to the water. So for the water, I'm gonna alternate between my medium and small brush. You can do the same. Like I said, if you're working bigger, you can also use your big brush for this. It really depends on the size you're using, okay? So for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start creating some very dark blue lines. So I'm gonna take a little bit of blue, a tiny, tiny bit of black, mix that together. And I'm gonna start creating some like lines in the distance here. Very, very gently. I'm not applying a lot of pressure with this, and I'm kind of just pulling them. So you want your waves in the distance to be very small and closer together. So the less pressure I apply with my brush, the thinner the line's gonna be. The more pressure I apply, the thicker your line's gonna be. So try to not apply too much pressure when you're creating thin lines. And as you get towards the shore, your lines can get a little bit thicker. And I'm gonna start to angle them a little bit here. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start pulling a little bit. So I'm gonna take that blue color, mix it with a bit of white, and I'm gonna start getting into the shoreline. So right now this is just a base coat, okay? I'm gonna apply lighter colors to this afterwards. So I'm adding a bit of white to that, and I'm gonna start kind of pulling it just a little bit. So I want this to kind of look like there's a wave that's crashing on the shore or about to come in to crash on the shore. So I will be pulling it up like this a little bit, and we're gonna touch up the top area afterwards and add some details to that, okay? So for now, don't worry about it. If it looks a little bit messy, that's fine. I'm just making it a little bit lighter. We're gonna add some dark bits to it as well. So for now, just leave it like that. We're gonna rinse out our brush and go in with some other tones. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in with some lighter blues just to give some detail to the background. So you can alternate between your blues now. So you can go completely white, which is good. What I'm gonna do like afterwards, once the whole painting's done, just to give it a few highlights. But for now, I'm gonna go with a lighter blue. Keep it pretty light. And you can start adding just very gently, add some little lines in the background. Just so it looks like some ripples in the waves. We still want to leave the background fairly dark. Kind of creating these like little broken lines. I'm just dabbing it on the canvas, keeping that horizontal line. Okay, so right above the dark waves, I'm gonna add a bit of that white highlight. Where the sun is also, you can add a few more of those white streaks to act like a reflection on the water. So I'm just gonna pull it gently. Okay, so when I'm doing this, I'm really barely applying any pressure. I'm keeping it super light on my brush. I want to keep it really delicate, like my lines and stuff, so that's why I don't apply a lot of pressure. Like the more pressure you apply, the thicker, like I said, your lines are going to be. And we want to keep this fairly light, okay? So the less pressure you put, the more delicate your lines are going to be, and they'll blend easier into the other lines. So I'm kind of just sweeping back and forth like so. And like I said, you can alternate. So I'm gonna go back with some dark as well, just to touch up certain areas where I feel like it's missing a little bit, or if I added too much of the light. This is your time to kind of like play around with it and until you're satisfied with the results, and then I'll show you how to do the wave crashing onto the shore. Add a bit of lighter areas here. Okay, and let's see, let me go back with some dark now. Take that dark blue, maybe a tiny bit of black, not too much. Just maybe all the way in the distance, add like a few dark ones. Okay, so where the shoreline is now, I'm gonna start adding just a few dark lines, kind of like pulling in a little bit. Not too much. So the wave is gonna be crashing here, okay? So I wanna create a shadow where, right underneath the top of the wave. So I'm going to start to kind of darken it just a little bit here. And I'm going to pull down very gently. Okay, so I'm gonna go back with the white and kind of just blend it. I'm going to switch to my small brush just to get all those little details. So I am gonna switch to my small brush now. And if you, like I said, if you're working bigger, you don't have to switch to your small brush. It depends your size. I'm getting to the small brush just because I feel like I could get better details with it. I'm gonna just touch up like the darker areas now. You can add a few thinner lines and even kind of just pulling the paint a little bit to give it some detail on the waves. Okay, so I'm kind of creating like some angled lines here. And even where the shoreline is, I'm gonna kind of just pull in very gently where I want some darker bits of the waves. You can create some little lines as well. And I'm gonna kind of also outline a little bit of the shoreline just here, slightly. Create a bit of a shadow. All right. One more time, rinse. And we're gonna start going back with some lighter blues. So I'm gonna take a little bit of the light blue now. If you wanna mix a bit of yellow in there, you can, just to give it more of like a turquoise color. All right, so here's where I'm gonna start kind of pulling down a little bit. Getting a bit of the lighter tone. I'm creating these little lines. They are really subtle because I want it to be, I want to give it like subtle details to the wave, so it kind of looks like it's turning over. So I'm just pulling very, very gently. And then with the white, I'm going to start adding some more little details there. So the shoreline, I can start adding a bit of white. And pulling it in. So. Always following the direction of the wave. And I'm going to start to add some little white bits here, just so it looks like it's crashing. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just dabbing it on very, very gently. I might use my medium brush just for the dabbing because it's a little bit bigger, it'll go a bit faster. So taking a bit of white, I'm kind of keeping it toned down a little bit. The highlights I'll create afterwards. So even if it's a bit more on the blue side, it's okay. Okay, and you can also pull down in certain areas. And I'm pulling down. So as I'm doing like the mist, I'm kind of twisting my brush a little bit. So a little more white. I'm going to take a bit of that blue and I'm just going to kind of pull it over the shoreline here, just a little bit. I don't want to hide the sand completely. So it'll look a little bit transparent when you do that. I'm going to add a bit of that white to the edge. So now's the part where you can play around with your colors. If you feel like you added, like there's too much white and you're missing a bit of dark, go back with the dark and just kind of touch it up wherever you feel you need. Adding like a few darker lines near the shore, and then I'll touch up with some white as well. So again, I'm just pulling wherever I feel like, oh, I want to add a bit of some darker areas, some lighter areas. Right under the wave, I kind of want it to be dark. I'm just gonna pull down a bit. All right, so I'm gonna switch again and go a little bit lighter. Might add a bit of yellow to it just to give it a little bit of that turquoise look. I'm gonna go in with my small brush for this. Be a little easier to work with. So I'm gonna pull the paint on the shoreline. I'm gonna add a bit of water to the paint just to make it a little more liquidy. I feel like it's easier to create thin lines that way. So again, I'm gonna just continue to like make all these little lines in the water. I'm gonna go back to some of the waves in the background to kind of create a highlight on the tips, wherever you want. This is where it's really gonna start to make everything pop. So you can always go back and forth. Like I added a little too much here. I want to keep the lines in the background fairly thin. So if you feel like you want a little too thick, go back and touch it up. So like I said, the more little details you have, the nicer it's gonna look. So don't be afraid to play around with it. You could add some darker lines as well. So now's the time, like I said, you can go back and forth till you're happy with it. So I'm gonna just continue to play here, just till I'm kind of satisfied with the result. Okay, so just continue to play with it. Like I said, back and forth, alternate between your darks and lights till you feel like you're satisfied with the result. I'm just gonna add a bit darker tones here. I might switch to my medium brush for this. And I'm just gonna continue to play a bit because I feel like I could add a few more lines. And like I said, once I'm happy with it, I'm gonna just stop there. So just continue to like play around, have fun with your colors. You can add a little more of lights or darks if you feel like you missed some areas. If you want to add more depth to it, don't be afraid to play around. Might add a bit of darker bits to the wave up in the front so it gives it a little more dimension. So maybe like down here I'm going to add a few darker lines. Okay, creating that dark line underneath the last wave that's crashing on shore, and I'm gonna just touch it up with some white here. Alright, so I'm gonna stop soon. I always say that the hardest part is knowing when to stop. I might retrace the sun just because I feel like I lost it a little bit, or it's a little light. So just touch up some waves. Alright, so I'm going to take just a little bit of white paint and just retrace the sun a little bit. some white. I feel like I could just do this forever. Just gonna add a little bit of medium blue, and that's it. Right, so I'll stop there. Like I said, I could go on with this forever, but I will stop there. So this is it. This is just a basic beach scene that you can paint for beginners. If you like our videos, please like and subscribe to our channel. We have a Facebook and Instagram page called Paint for Fun, paint number 4 fun. Like I always say, we're based in Montreal, so once the lockdown is over, we usually host painting events in bars and restaurants. We have private parties that we can do too, birthdays and bachelorettes or kids' birthdays, whatever. We do it all. So you can also visit our website at www.paintforfun.ca. And that's it, guys. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a great night.